So DBU lands another defensive back over this past weekend. We talk a little bit about Rutgers athletic director search and the House settlement case. Warning, rant incoming. Let's get to it. Okay, so Rutgers lands a defensive back, and that always makes us feel uh, pretty good because we know what a good job that Coach Shiano and staff does with defensive backs. And we land, and I believe is a 3-star. I saw a lot of recruiting services without a rating, but we'll go with a 3-star for now. That's okay. We love developing those 3 stars, especially if you're a developmental program. We land Florida defensive back Latrell Noel, who announced his commitment this weekend. Love this. 6'3". I believe he's 195. He had a bunch of offers, nothing earth-shattering. We flipped him. Well, not a flip, really. He had committed to Coastal Carolina, that he is going to recommit from 2026 to the 2025 season, so he can play in the upcoming year. So we beat out the likes of Coast. We didn't go into SEC territory or Pennsylvania, Penn State territory, Midwest. But we beat out James Madison, who's typically pretty good, UConn, Toledo, Yale, Navy. And that's okay. That's fine. Coastal Carolina, they've been pretty good. They've been 58-42 over the past 7 years. 5 bowl games and 1 Sun Belt championship. So it's not a Mickey Mouse kind of thing. So that's okay. You can use those guys as well. Third consecutive year where we have a commit, a reclassify. Latrell had moved to Connecticut in order to play play a prep year up at Loomis Chaffee School. As a senior, he totaled 50 tackles, 4.5 for loss, 1 sack, 5 pass deflections, 3 fumble recoveries, and a blocked punt. And might have been the night report, whoever it might have been, talking about his versatility to put out on the outside use for special teams. And Coach Shiano loves special teams versatility. We need to get back to more of that, where it's just expected that we will do well and block kicks and punts on special teams. So hopefully Latrell becomes a special teams force. Maybe that's the way that you break into the games, into the lineups. We have 28 commits now for 2025. 4th cornerback, he joins Georgia's Michael Clayton. Renick Darius and Stephen Murray. But what I like is we're getting longer and more athletic, and we're getting size. We talked about this a bunch of times, whether it was the offensive line, adding some beef to be able to play in the Big Ten, getting some length at wide receiver, getting taller at wide receiver. He joins, Latrell joins Michael Clayton, 6'1", 6'2", Stephen Murray, 6'1", Renick Darius, 6 foot, Cam Miller, 6'1", Tariq Hayes, 6'1", 6'2", Chris Joynes, 6'3", Jed Elat, 6'1", Sage Klages, 6'4". So we're building a secondary that's getting longer, and I always feel that's a good thing. So we wish Latrell all the luck in the world. You're at the right place to develop and get drafted. So good job by Rutgers staff once again, building some depth at all the positions. All right, let's get into it. A lot of chatter about potential athletic director and Steve Politti's story. talking about how Rutgers is pioneering a new phase of what athletic directives will look like, according to the guy who runs Attorney ZRG out of Haddonfield, which is South Jersey outside. By the way, if you ever get to Haddonfield, it's an awesome town, man. When you pull into town, into the downtown, it looks like Princeton. Architecture. It looks like Princeton without the university, but it's an awesome place. One of my favorite downtowns to go visit in New Jersey. But Attorney ZRG has placed 10 ADs in conference. So the quote from Perna said, I think Rutgers is pioneering a new phase of what athletic directives will look like. And this is part of Politi's article. And I think Rutgers is thinking about this in a really new, refreshing way and is pioneering a new profile and new structure inside the Department of Athletics. So I don't know if that's good or bad. Trend chasing, pioneering, whatever you believe the short-term future holds. What is going to be some sort of business manager kind of thing where, like the Knicks hiring, Leon Rose as the GM of their franchise. Is that what we're looking at there? And that's the old model of the athletic director is obviously not something that's going to be part of the new landscape of NCAA athletics. And we'll get to that in a second. This is probably part of the House decision. We have that advisory board that was helping with conducting the search. And I loved that Marco Battaglia was on it. Kind of weird. It had field hockey coach Meredith Savicho. You had board of governors guy on there, senior vice president for the strategy, chief of stats, yada yada, chief financial officer, yada yada yada. But I was shocked and loved that Hollis Copeland, he of being on the last Rutgers basketball team that was any good in the mid to late 70s, it was on that staff. So, all right, let's get to it. U.S. District Judge Claudia Wilkin gave final approval of the landmark settlement after 5 years, $2.8 billion settlement over 10 years that will pay past players for not having the opportunity for name, image, and likeness opportunities. And it allows colleges to pay current players directly starting July 1st. They can share up to $20.5 million on players with a cap of that goes up 4% every year. So I'll get to my rant in a second. The new roster, so the big sports, they're going to get most of the revenue. That's going to result in cutting of a lot of athletes, maybe cutting out entire chunks of programs, because all the money is going to have to go to the big sports. It's going to have to go to football, which is 75% of future revenues, 15% to men's basketball, 5% to women's basketball, and 5% to the rest. We kind of went through this a few years ago when we had to cut the Olympic sports. It was a big controversy. Don't be shocked if that happens. But nonetheless, the total revenue pool, salary pool, 85% of it can go towards football at some point. But this is new ground, which is why we're probably looking, this talk about Rutgers pioneering a new model of athletic director. There's seen articles written about how those NIL deals with third parties and collectives outside the revenue sharing plan will face intense scrutiny. All right. A new enforcement starting on July 1st. People who are for this say, oh, well, they used to pay them anyway. This will help curb pay for play schemes between boosters and players that go beyond the market value. BS. I'll get to that in a second. Those deals that were struck before the settlement now, they're not going to be subject to scrutiny because it came before the deal was passed. That authority doesn't start until July 1st to be able to monitor and supervise and police the systems. The panel conferences are expected to soon announce a college sports commission tasked with overseeing the settlement terms and enforce new rules. It's a joke. They're not just not going to be just about enforcing the rules of how the money is shared, but if guys are getting their fair share when it comes to market value. You heard it here first. It's going to be a slush fund. That's going to happen. You're going to see agents, professional business managers creating shell companies that don't generate any NIL to pay athletes. Oh, who does that sound like? Oh, that sounds like our elected officials. That's what's going to happen. This is an absolute positive joke. Universities are not profit. I've talked about this a bunch. I've ranted about it a lot. And I'm probably going to continue to rant about it. Universities are nonprofits. Their goal is not to generate profits like Apple, like Google. Yes, the lazy thinking is, oh, well, the coaches get paid millions of dollars. The president's making $1 million. Fine, great. When you go out into the world and get a big boy job, you can get paid as well. But if you're working for a nonprofit out in the real world, the administrator, the overseer, the CEO, they're going to be the ones collecting the salary. You'll have, some administrators, some managers, some employees, but most of it is going to be driven by volunteers. That's how nonprofits survive, volunteers. It's a resume builder. You get experience. You make connections. You make contacts. That's what a university is for when it comes to extracurricular, extraneous activities. That's what athletics was about. In addition to other things, being a well-rounded person, building character. You're playing football, becoming a man, building the culture. Universities aren't, it's basically now it's the G League. And I don't ever once ever hear anybody use the term student athlete ever again. These are paid professional athletes who are getting paid, and they're not paying for their education, so they're not a student. It's a joke. Talked about this before. If you get an athletic scholarship to Rutgers, forget about the nonsense tuitions that they post on all the, on the internet and the sites and the U.S. News, 25,000, blah, blah, blah. All in, living on campus at Rutgers. Tuition, room and board, meal plan, books, computer fees, this fees, student fees, parking. All in is 50 to 55,000 a year. All in. After 4 years, do the math. That's 220,000. If you're a college athlete and you're on men's basketball, men's football, some of the other sports as well, you're getting coaching to help turn you into a professional athlete and build your brand. You're getting free marketing from the university. They're your marketing arm. You're not paying for that. Personal, professional, and academic coaching, making contacts, coming back after you leave school to become a graduate assistant, become a coach, all of that stuff that you do, courtesy of the taxpayers, that you don't have to pay for, professionals have to pay for. When business managers, CEOs, professionals, they have to go to seminars and pay for these coaching seminars of $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $30,000 to learn how to take their businesses to the next level. This stuff matters. The average student doesn't get that kind of academic and life preparation. And I've said this before, somebody needs to file a lawsuit against the NCAA for students who don't get directly paid. Okay, you're not getting 30,000 people to go see the Ohio University in August at SHI Stadium. What about the revenues paid out to athletes in the way of the expenses we just talked about, $55,000 a year? Why don't they have to pay back the university and New Jersey taxpayers for footing the bill for turning many of them into professional athletes? What about the adjunct who's not making a lot, is not getting a lot of classes, the graduate assistants, the students helping out the students and the professors get better at their work and their job and their academics? You make a scientific discovery at Rutgers, it makes the world a better place. You're not getting millions. You're not getting 20.5 million in revenue sharing. How about the people that helped you become an entrepreneur, become successful in business, who literally trained you to go out into the world? You go out, you make hundreds of millions of dollars. Should the people who helped you get there get a chunk of that? Maybe somebody should file a suit for that. You want to talk about disrupting the academic and university process? That's a lawsuit I'd like to see. There's nothing wrong with being an apprentice and getting $50,000 to $100,000 a year in free benefits to play a game most of us would play for nothing. I still have the bolts in my knee for tearing my knee up. I do it all over again. For free. It's not about being OG or being set in your ways or not keeping up with the times. Hint, mostly all athletic programs don't make money. A handful that do, most of them don't. And you look at Rutgers, we're like the federal government. We're going to be in debt forever, and we're just going to keep printing money. It's more difficult for us coming from when I was a kid, a child. A public liberal arts university with a good academic reputation to this behemoth of a state university, because we didn't have one, and the geniuses that are the New Jersey legislature figured out, We'll just make Rutgers it. So a disjointed past and an awkward growing present and future, where we now have to compete with teams that have had generations of a head start academically, athletically, and identity-wise. It's one thing if we've been the University of New Jersey for 100 years, but we haven't been. Been a lot of complaints over the past year or so. Oh, Rutgers doesn't have the money. We can't spend the money. Steve Pico, basketball is too cheap. They're looking at this. Isn't the G League? Well, it is now. It's not professional athletics, although it is now. And yes, okay, Rutgers. There's some. You'd be surprised at how much some Rutgers professors make. I wrote an article to the Star Ledger. I actually wrote a lot of letters to the Star Ledger years ago. I want to say probably 15, 20 years ago. Did some research at that time, 15, 20, whatever it was, how many years ago. About 250 Rutgers administrators, professors that were making over $200,000 a year. But their job is not producing widgets that you can sell to make a profit, and you get some of the commission on that so the company stays viable. If you don't do well at that, private companies go out of business. University is going to go out of business? No, the state and the taxpayers are always going to be there to bail them out. Even if you're a private school, the recent controversy with Harvard, the administration wants to take away that funding. Harvard has what, $54 or $58 billion, and they're crying that their research and development is going to be hurt because they're not getting taxpayer money. Look, if your investment team can't get you just okay return of 5 to 10% a year on your $58 billion, you got the wrong guys investing your money. So as a public university, I mean, Harvard's, acting like they're a private university. They act as a private business, but they want the benefits of taxpayer dollars. Essentially now, universities, what they are is marketing firms. That's what they are. They're sharing revenue with athletes. And when I heard a few years ago that the lawyers lobbying for payers that could play was saying they're employed, they're not employees. They're not. They're having fun playing a kid's game. That's what they're doing. They don't have to show up for work and punch their card. And if they don't show up for work, they don't get paid. Athletes want to play sports. It's part of being, gasp, an amateur. This is not amateur sports. Calling it a university now and calling them student athletes is an abject joke. You know what this is? This is now for-profit colleges. You know those for-profit colleges? That's what it is. It's a marketing entity. Now, why should look? There's nothing wrong with a university. If you're a stud Division I athlete, you're Arch Manning. If you want to go out and sell, your jersey number, make some money, fine, have at it. Shouldn't have a problem with that. If somebody wants to buy Arch Manning's jersey, okay. But where we are now, it is not the new frontier. It's not going to get better. You thought it was bad at the old days where guys were getting something under the table. Everybody knew it, but kind of ignored it. Unless you were SMU. It's going to get worse now. It absolutely is, because these millions of dollars, billions, are going to be poured in. And there's going to be all kinds of financing structured as business deals, as NIL deals, and they're not. There'll be a lot of slush funds. And we're always going to be behind because we're Rutgers. College sports is not big in the Northeast. Our alumni donor base, it's not like Michigan. It's not like Ohio State. It's not like Notre Dame. Gee, what do those universities have in common? And identity and being academically and athletically significant for generations. So we will always be behind the curve. We'll need revenue sharing. We'll need some of that to keep, our athletic department afloat. This is not going to be the panacea. I had read one article. It was kind of a joke. They said it was going to smooth things out and make it more predictable. This is the beginning of the unpredictability. You heard it here first. That's my rant for the weekend. Everybody enjoy your week coming up. We'll see if we get an AD this week. There's talk that we will, and we'll see you the next time. Cheers. I need a little bit of vino.